Different, the podcast that redefines leadership and challenges the status quo. Hosted by Daniel Dominguez, founder and CEO of Why Not Leadership. This show is your compass to becoming a better leader through the power of self-awareness. Good leaders foster teams that are engaged, empowered, and energized. Join us on this transformative journey as we equip you with the tools and insights to lead different. Get ready to challenge the ordinary and embrace self-aware leadership. This is Lead Different.
Subscribe now. Discover a new era of leadership. Lead different, because great leaders change the world.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Lead Different podcast. Today's guest is Lynnaire Johnston. She comes from a broadcasting background and for many years was a feature writer and magazine and publications editor. As well, she had a 2-decade history as a copywriter, focusing on websites and online content. Now she specializes solely on LinkedIn and uses skills acquired as a news writer and copywriter to write unique and compelling multi-format content. Lynnaire Johnston is an internationally recognized LinkedIn expert who ranks in the top 20 worldwide. She has written 2 books on the subject and is in frequent demand for podcasts and interviews, and that's why she's here with us today. On her Linkability YouTube channel, she shares tips, tricks, and ideas for making best use of the world's best business social media platform. I agree 100% with you on that, Lynnaire. She covers the best practices in her webinars to help you achieve your LinkedIn marketing objectives. Please help me welcome our good friend, Lynnaire Johnston, to the Lead Different podcast. How are you, Lynnaire?
Oh, it's so lovely to be back with you again, Dan. Thank you so much for having me. I'm absolutely fabulous, and I hope you are too.
Lynnaire, I cannot thank the stars enough and thank Providence, thank God, whoever I need to thank for bringing you into my circle. It has been a great 2 to 3 year relationship that we have had here through LinkedIn, through our good friend Gina Ballerin, who I think introduced us, and we've just had some great collaborations over the years. And as I launched this new podcast, I knew you were one of the people I wanted to have on because you've always got so much good to share. And you are so generous. True to your why of contribute, you are always so generous with your audience, with your guests, and everyone you come in contact with. So welcome to the Lead Different podcast. Thank you for sharing your expertise and wisdom with us.
Well, I'm looking forward to your insightful questions, Dan.
Well, we're going to just go ahead and get started. Lynnaire, you've had a distinguished career doing a lot of different things in different mediums. What made you say, you know what, I really love this social platform for business leaders and business people overall, that you said, I want to help people really maximize that? What led to that decision?
Well, it really crept up on me, Dan, to be fair, because I had discovered that LinkedIn had a publishing platform, which I didn't know about. I just thought LinkedIn was all about recruitment, like most people. And then one day I woke up to realize that it did, in actual fact, have a publishing platform, and I'm a writer. So, I mean, that was just perfect for me. I started writing on LinkedIn. I started writing about writing on LinkedIn, started learning about LinkedIn and doing different things with it. Really enjoyed it, and basically I fell in love with it. And you know what? That was about 8 years ago, and I haven't fallen out of love with it since. I just absolutely think it is the best online platform for business owners, for coaches, for leaders, for anybody who really is in any kind of professional environment and they want to get in front of an audience as themselves authentically. And I just think it's a no-brainer with so many opportunities that everybody should be here, Dan, just like you and me. In fact, one of the things that I did really want to mention today to you is about how that actually happened for me, that I got to become what is called an expert. Now, I don't call myself an expert. Other people call me an expert. And it was as simple as waking up one morning and discovering that somebody had added me to a list of top 20 experts Asia Pacific. And what does an expert have? Every expert has a book. So I set about writing a book which gave me an entree into the international stage. And today I am well regarded by my peers and colleagues, which is very important to me. And better yet, I have a voice for people who are wanting to learn about LinkedIn but find it a little overwhelming because, as you know, Dan, it's a big platform. There's a lot going on, but there are so many opportunities here that I'm thrilled to be able to talk about what we can do with LinkedIn with you today.
Well, here's the other cool thing that you just brought up, and I like it when the questions flow naturally from the comments that the person that I'm interviewing makes. So you talked about people who find it overwhelming, and when we look at your Y operating system, which is how we met through Gina Baller, and she said, "Hey, you've got to try this out." Dan's using a new tool called the YOS Discovery. Your why is contribute, your how is to simplify, and your what is to make sense. So you're a person who wants to make a difference in the lives of others, but how you do that is by making things simple and easy to understand. And what you bring are solutions that make sense. And we know from my experience with the helping people discover their YOS is the why it makes sense is all about solving problems. People come to you when they're stuck, when they're overwhelmed, and you help them make sense of things, and you also make things simple. So, have you always noticed that that's somebody that you are? You want to help people, and how you help them is by simplifying things, and then ultimately what you deliver are solutions that make sense.
Well, I always knew the first bit, the contribute bit, because it's in my genes. My grandmother was the world's most amazing person for helping others. And so somehow that seems to have come down to me. And in different ways over my life, I've always been somebody who likes to help. And when LinkedIn came along and I started to really get enthused about it and talk about it, it started helping other people. People started coming to me and say, well, how do I do this? And why does it work like that? And why can't I make this work? And so all of a sudden I found myself that I was contributing, although I didn't put that label on it, Dan, until you and I met. I didn't consider that as contributing. I just considered that as helping other people to try and figure this all out as well. But I hadn't realized the other two bits. I hadn't realized the bit about making sense and about simplifying, but I've been a writer all my professional life, and it's what I do. Again, it's in my genes. I've been doing it for a long time, and consequently making things simple. It's really easy for me because that's what being a journalist and a writer is all about. It's about taking complex ideas and making them simple for people to be able to understand. And so really, once that was obvious to me and you shared that whole iOS operating system with me, it was like a light bulb went on. I absolutely could see that what I was doing fitted exactly into that category or into that process, if you like. And that meant that I could double down on it because I knew I was doing the right thing. So for me, learning about that was just a eureka moment that made so much sense of my life. I wish I'd known it years ago, Dan.
I think that's the comment I hear the most when I help people discover their Y operating system is, I wish I'd known this 20 years ago. And so I tell young people when I do get an opportunity to work with them, you are so lucky to have this in your 20s and your 30s, because I didn't discover mine until I was in my late 40s, early 50s, and it did make such a big difference for me. So one of the things I know about you, Lynnaire, is you love helping people make the best possible use of new features, current trends, and best practices to create compelling profiles, build their network, and become visible. What's something that you're excited about right now on LinkedIn that's new and different and that people need to take advantage of?
Well, it might sound a little odd, I think, but it's the services section. Now, this is fairly specific. Some people might tell you it's AI or perhaps profile verification, but my current focus is on the services section because those of us who are in B2B do offer services, and LinkedIn gives us a special section on our profiles where we can add media, talk about what we do, have a list of our services, and also include reviews. reviews. Up until recently, this has been hidden. It's been one layer down from your profile, but now LinkedIn is bringing it right up to the top of our profiles, front and center. So if you are someone who is able to get reviews from your clients, from people that you work with, your colleagues and your peers, then that is the ideal section for you to really maximize right now, because most people don't know that it's there. Now, as of recording, not everybody has this, but by the time you listen to this, everybody will. Now, you do need a premium account for this to display as well as it should, but I just would like you to know about it so you can go in and take a look, because even on the free version, you can see what there is there that in fact you can use, even though it mightn't display in the way I'm talking about. But in fact, what does happen is that it still sits there and it's just an extra click away. So Dan, you know that social proof's really important, right? And recommendations on our LinkedIn profile sit right at the bottom, but our reviews, if we've got the services section and we use it well, and we've got premium, sits right at the top, just under our about section. And it just makes a great big difference, I think, to how people really can share what it is they do, who they serve, and the results they'll get.
So I'm sharing my profile. So I do have a premium account, and there it is right below open to in the add profile section. So I like that it's there. And so the recommendations are there also, Lynnaire.
The reviews. So this is a
reviews.
Section. So Dan, you haven't got this new rollout as yet. If you were able to go to my profile and scroll down to the about section,
Perfect. I'll take a look at it.
And so LinkedIn has been changing a whole bunch of things this month. And we're talking in early April 2024. And so one of the things that they've changed is the movement of the about section back up to the top of our profiles. And so you can just see the services there poking up. If you go down slightly, you'll be able to see that it's got services. It's got some lovely big thumbnail images there, Dan. And underneath it, it's got my most recent reviews. Further down than that, just below the about section.
There we go.
There you are, right, exactly. Now that looks, I think, really great in people's profiles because it stops the scroll. Those images are likely to make people go, I wonder what this is. And people will go, well, this is a weird section. I've not seen this before, but we've always had it. It's not new. It's just new that it's been displayed on the front of our profiles. So there you go. That's what I'm most excited about right at the moment.
Well, and as you said, by the time the podcast airs, we will be able to use it. So thank you for sharing. And it was really cool to see the difference between my profile and your profile, because you've got it rolled out as what. And probably there are some benefits that come from being a top LinkedIn voice, right, Lynnaire?
Well, I love to experiment, Dan. Anytime a new feature comes out, I can't wait to give it a go. Sometimes I'll leave it on my profile because I like people to be able to see what's possible. Other times I'll take it off once I've just decided, no, it's not actually going to be much use to me. Sometimes it's just things that are in the background. It might be something to do with analytics or who I can see. And otherwise, though, I like to have as much on my profile as I can, simply so that people can see what options there are. So I kind of see that that's part of my contribution and that helping other people to see what is possible with their LinkedIn profiles, because there's so much change. There were more than 200 changes last year. We're already over 70, and we're only at the beginning of Q2 of 2024. Can you imagine how many there are going to be by the end of the year? But let me tell you something else I'm looking forward to. We're hearing at the moment there's going to be a new video tab. Currently, it's only being beta tested in the United States, and I think it's only for people with iPhones. But the idea is that it's going to be like a TikTok tab, and you'll be able to scroll videos up and down. So portrait style videos will show up in this feed, and we'll be able to have a whole new video format to play with. Now, I'm a great fan of video on LinkedIn. I was a late adopter, I don't mind admitting, but once I got over the technology difficulty and over my my head difficulties because I had this mindset that said I couldn't do it. Once I got over those and started working with video, I absolutely love doing it, simply because it's a great way to get in front of people and to share your enthusiasm and your ideas in a way that people can really relate to because they can see you in person. Now, as a professional writer, I'd like to think that I could get that across in words, but it doesn't work nearly as well as it does with video. So I'm a great fan of that new one, Dan. So if you spot that and in your feed, because it's, as I say, it's just been rolling out, do let me know, because I've not seen it live myself at all.
Perfect. No, and thank you for that tip. And I'm going to look for it, because one of the things that I definitely want to work on more is doing more video. I love doing the podcast, but because this podcast in its previous version was Why Not Wednesday, it was a LinkedIn live show that I did once a week. That was my entree into video. And you're absolutely right. You just have to do it. I recommend, if you're thinking about doing video, any kind of video, I think you're going to look back, I've done, hundreds of episodes now, and I look back at those early ones and I say, oh my gosh, I can't believe I was so terrible. But you can't improve until you try it, right? You have to get started. So what tips do you have on how to create video for someone who's hesitant to get on camera for whatever reason?
Practice. It just takes practice. And I think it's a mindset issue for a lot of people, Dan, too. We think we can't do it, and so therefore we don't. But leaders need to lead, and we need to lead by example, and video is a great way to do that. It's also about authenticity. With the rise of AI, video is one way that you can really show up on LinkedIn as your true self. So in terms of tips for how to create great videos, I think that the best way to do it is just quietly in your office with the door closed, where nobody can hear you, and just practice. Put your phone up on a ring light or some way that it stands up and you don't have to hold it, because I think that doesn't really bode well for good videos. Then all you need to do is turn your phone on and just practice. Talk as if you were talking to people. When I'm doing my videos, I pretend I'm talking to a particular person that I want to get a message across to. The more you do it, the more succinct you will become, and the easier it will be. You won't need to have so many takes. But it is important, I think, a skill to master. And I think for leaders, we really do need to be able to show that we can do it. And not only just leaders, Dan, but those of us who are a little older, those of us who are not going to see 21 again, we need to show that we're right up there with technology, and that we know how to operate it, and we can be perfectly comfortable with it. So my tip is to make sure that you just practice, Dan. Like anything, 10,000 hours, all that.
10,000 hours. Well, you brought something up. You talk about leaders leading, and you were gracious enough to have me on a show where we, with a bunch of experts, to talk about the importance of senior leaders in companies being active on social media, especially to be active on LinkedIn. And we shared a lot of tips on things you can do, and really, I've gone down to as few as 2 posts a week, but I really try to make the content that I put out be impactful, be different, and that gets engagement from people. And so what tips have you heard back from any senior leaders that we were able to maybe grab in and say, hey, now I'm using LinkedIn, and these are the things that I'm doing different? But I love the idea of senior leaders at any company getting on and putting out a video that shows, hey, I'm human, I'm here, and I'm going to talk about something that you need to know. Mark Halpert says, look, tell people, if you know something you think people need to know, you should share it. If you love something you think other people will love, you should share it. And if you believe in something that you think other people should believe in, share it. What are some of the tips or what are some of the comments you've gotten since we did that show?
Well, I think that one thing it has led to, Dan, and that is a client of ours has moved the needle when it comes to LinkedIn. So let me just tell you a bit about what they do. They're a big project management company in Auckland. This is New Zealand's largest city. And this is a $650 million project. It's going to be a huge, big building right in the center of the city. Now, their CEO is a person who's really not had much to do with LinkedIn previously. But now that we've been working with them for a little while, we set up a LinkedIn page for that particular project, which is doing very well. He's decided that he really likes the idea of all of this attention that this page is getting, and he wants in too. So we've been creating thought leadership posts for him. So if there's something big that happens in the industry, or there's some economic news, for instance, that he wants people to know about, or thinks people should be knowing, just like Mark Halpert was saying, I think that he is now seeing that doing posts about that on LinkedIn is a really good idea, because he is building an audience, he's bringing in new connections, and that inevitably brings in new business. So it's kind of like making sure you're on the right track by starting with the right things, which is to get out there and to be visible. And I think leaders all over the world tend to forget that visibility is important to them. Now, they may think it's only important in their own companies, but even then they need to be on LinkedIn within the company and working to make sure that their company staff see him, again, leading by example, because leaders have a lot to say, Dan, don't they? And good information to share, just like Mark said. Share it with people that need to know it.
Yes, and I find, a lot of people have strategies. I like to, sometimes I wake up and a thought's in my head, and I just develop it, and then I put it out there. I use Canva, and I try to make it look pretty, but at the end of the day, people want to hear your thoughts, and they want to have the ability to respond. And you never know. Sometimes you think you have a brilliant idea, you put it out, and nobody responds, and you may be and you're having a blah day, and you think, I'm just going to put something out, and then that gets the most response, right? So you never really know. You've got it. It takes practice. One of the things that I want to make sure we get into, Lynnaire, because you are such a generous soul and such a great champion for others. Tell us, let's dig a little bit deeper into that. Where does that come from? Why do you think you are wired to make a difference, to help others, to have a positive impact? Can you take us back to the earliest you remember thinking to yourself, I'm blessed, I have gifts, and I want to give back?
I think that it came about very oddly with nothing to do with work at all, which is interesting, because my life is based around my work and my garden, and so consequently this is a little bit left of field. But in an earlier iteration in my life, I found myself making chutneys and jams and jellies and sauces from an excess of fruit that I had. And because I had this excess and made all these things, I started giving them away. And nobody could come to my house without going away with an armful of these jars of chutneys, etc., that I created. And I got a really lot of good response from that. People just loved it. And this wasn't a quid pro quo. This is just me saying, I've got this extra. Would you like it? Away you go. And it's the same with my garden. If I grew too much, I would just give excess vegetables away to people. So I think that really it's just in my nature to do that. If I've got extra and people don't have something, then I'm just happy to share. But where it ties in for me with LinkedIn, I think, is on the professional side, because my background was journalism. I was a radio journalist and announcer when I was really young, and that meant that I was reporting on stories, and as we already talked about, trying to simplify ideas. But that reporting meant that I also had a love of news and what is new, and I think that that's really informed what I do now in terms of the new features with LinkedIn, because I love nothing better than to wake up in the morning, go onto LinkedIn and discover there's a new feature available that I can play with. And so I like to let people know about that, because there's no point in keeping news like that to yourself, and LinkedIn's not going to tell you. So one of my jobs, as I see it, is to help people to see what there is new on LinkedIn, and then how to use it, and whether or not it's going to be a good idea for them. Because it's not a good idea, Dan, for us just to adopt everything wholesale. That services idea I shared with you earlier, that might not work for everybody. If you don't provide services, for instance, it's not going to be for you. So part of it is also making sure that people understand how it's going to work for them, is it going to work for them, and then making a decision for themselves. Great profile there, isn't it? I love it. Let me just talk to you again about what I think is the most important thing to have on a LinkedIn profile, because I think that it's really an important thing. I can't hear you, Dan, if you were talking to me. Oh, there you
No,
go.
absolutely. How can people? I pulled up your profile because I wanted to make sure we talked about this. What are the absolute must-haves for a compelling LinkedIn profile? And I thought I'd bring up the profile of someone I know has all the must-haves on there. So talk us through some of the important things that you've got to have on here.
Well, I think the first thing is the banner. That's the first thing that anybody's going to see. It's also called a background image. That's the colorful bit right at the top there that you can see, Dan. Now, you want people to be able to look at that and instantly know what it is that you do. So you can have a tagline on there. You can see I've got copies of the covers of my books. You might want to have your company logo on there. But the idea is that people have got to be able to understand just by a brief glance what it is that you do. The second thing is your profile photo. Can people recognize you in person from your LinkedIn profile, or is your profile 20 years old and people wouldn't recognize you today if they fell over you in the street? Your LinkedIn profile photo follows you around LinkedIn. So make sure that it's good head and shoulders, right there, nice and front and center with a great big smile. You want people to look at you and go, that's the person I would really like to get to know. And the third thing is your headline. So that sits there right underneath your name. It can be up to 220 characters long. You don't need to make it as long as that, but that's the space that you have to work with. So the way that you've got that displayed, Dan, nearly three full lines of text in which you say who you are, what you do, who you help, how you help them, and the results that they can achieve. Plus something interesting about you. You can see at the very end of my profile headline there, it says gardening addict. You have no idea the number of people who get in touch with me and say, I love that you're a gardener too. And that just makes you feel a little bit more warmer to somebody, because you've got something in common. They can feel that they know you better. So your banner or background image, your profile photo, and your headline, the three critical things that you need to have at the top. I'd be hopeless with that Vulcan thing, wouldn't I?
There you go. Now it's 3, right? I love what you said about the profile photo. You know, there's nothing that's more surprising than you meet someone on a Zoom meeting and they look nothing like the picture that you saw on their profile, right? You're like, wait, did I call the right person? So keeping that profile picture updated, it doesn't take a long time. I know that a lot of people use professional headshots. Yours looks like a very well done professional headshot. But just for those of you that might be intimidated by that, I used my ring light, put my phone up there and used a remote, took a couple of clicks and removed the background, and voila, there we go. So it doesn't have to be expensive.
No, and our phones are good enough these days, and we're easily able to use what we come up with on there. But the thing that you mentioned just in that bit, Dan, that was interesting, you said remove the background, and that's really important. You want to have no distracting background behind you. Like, for instance, if either of you or I were to take a profile photo where we're sitting currently, that would not work because there's too much going on behind us.
Right. You know, and I've been told there's too much going on behind me for my podcast, but you know, I've just gotten used to it, and I think it lets, you know, I always put the books I'm reading right behind remind me. And so that always has been a great conversation piece. I finally was part of a collaboration. So I've got a book that I was actually an author in back there, Voices for Leadership with Brian Brogan. So not as prolific as Lynnaire Johnston, who is a professional journalist and writer. But so linkability, tell us about your website, because there's a lot of great information on there that people should go to if they want to learn more. Tell us a little bit about linkability.biz, is it?
Yeah. Well, that stems also from the contribute in my Why iOS, because I have a lot of information about LinkedIn and I want to share it with people. And not everybody can afford my done for you services. And so I can't reach a lot of people that way. LinkedIn posts don't do nearly as well as they once did. So I may not be able to reach as many people that way. So I wanted to find a way that was affordable for people, that I could share the information that I have that will help them to leverage LinkedIn to achieve their professional goals. And so I set up linkability.biz with the aim of making it easy for people to be able to learn at their own pace. Now, I've got dozens of hours of content on there. I've got video, I've got podcast interviews, I've got content articles, all the new features are always there too, and a lot of information that is going to help people set up their profile, because everything depends on having a good profile, teaches them how to network and to build their connections, and also how to post well, how to make sure that they are visible out there on the platform. And so people are finding it really useful because it's free for 7 days. They can come and have a wander around. All the content is available for 7 days. And then if they decide that it's the kind of thing that they want to be involved with, then they join it, and they also then become part of our LinkedIn group. And on LinkedIn, in our group, I share information I don't share anywhere else. There is more information about new things I'm finding, new trends, new ideas, new experiments, things I'm finding that people are doing wrong, or that people need to make sure that they aren't doing, that other people might be. And so it's a really good way for people to see and learn about LinkedIn in a structured way, but without the pressure of having to do modules or courses or within any kind of time frame. Because once you remember, you can work at your own pace.
Love that. Well, Lynnaire, we're out of time here, but I want to make sure and ask you one more quick question, because we talked about it earlier. How have you been able to leverage your Why operating system, your profile of contribute, simplify, and make sense on your profile in order to attract people to you that are looking for contribute, simplify, and make sense? Or maybe you're using it in a completely different way, but let us know a little bit about that.
Sure. The way I do that is to offer a free ebook, Contribute, which I put up, make it really obvious right on the top of my profile that that's what I do. So it's easy for people to download without even having to share an email address. And so that's my Contribute. And I try to make sure that throughout my profile, I am sharing ideas for using LinkedIn and media that people might find interesting. But mainly, Dan, I use it in my posting, because now that I know that this is what I do, I can really double down on it. And I have doubled down on it because I know that that's the right thing for me to be doing, is sharing information so that it helps other people. And because of my journalistic background, I can make it simple and easy to understand. But let me share a secret with you. The reason I do that, or part of the reason that I do that, is not all altruistic. The part of the reason I do that is so that I understand it. Because if I don't understand it, I can't explain it to other people so they can understand it. So the simplify and make sense follows on from the contribute, because that really does help me to know what's going on as well. So I think that it's really important for people to be able to use their Why iOS on their LinkedIn platforms in a way that's subtle, but it does make sense, because it really can inform everything that you do. And I really encourage everybody else who might have completely different whys to me to see how they can use it, because I think it's really important to be able to put that into practice, whether it's posting on your profile or how you reach out to people. Make sure that people understand what it is that you do, what's underneath, what really motivates you.
Perfect. Well, thank you for sharing that tip. Lynnaire, what's one thing you want to make sure you leave our audience with today that we want them to go and implement tomorrow or today before, as soon as they finish listening to the show?
I'd like people to connect with me on LinkedIn, Dan. I recently changed my call to action button in the top from follow to connect. And so I am open to people wanting to connect with me and learn from me on LinkedIn. I share a lot of information for free. I do a lot of events. So please don't feel that connecting with me means you're going to be sold to. You won't. What you will be doing is being invited to events, and I'd really love you to connect to me. So please do that. Reach out and let me know that you've heard this, seen this, or a friend of Dan's, and let's make sure that we build a relationship on LinkedIn too.
That is wonderful. Lynnaire, and if you have not experienced one of Lynnaire's events, if you follow her, click on that bell, follow Lynnaire, look for those updates. And if she's having an event, I highly, highly recommend you go to it. I've been on both sides as an attendee and as a participant a couple of times, and I can tell you she runs a top-notch event. She is so professional. I just have really enjoyed being a part of your world, meeting your network. Everyone, and I say this, and there's not a lot of people I can say this about, but everyone that Lynnaire has introduced me to has added tremendous value to my knowledge, to my network, and sometimes even to my net worth, because some have become clients. So thank you so much for that, Lynnaire. What do you say we end the show on that note?
Why not, Dan? Why not?
Thank you so much. Right on cue, Lynnaire. Thank you, everyone, for listening. I hope you will take a look at Lynnaire's profile. She is looking to connect, so connect with her, follow her, and let's make a difference for more people in the world by keeping things simple and helping others make sense of it. Thank you, Lynnaire. Have a great rest of your week, and we look to see everyone back next week on the Lead Different podcast.
Subscribe now. Discover a new era of leadership. Lead different because great leaders change the world.